So I'm Trish Carden, known in the era we're talking about as Trish Morrison. And what we're talking about today is Marauder Miniatures, which was a sort of mini off-cut company from Workshop, which Ali Morrison and I were the main designers. Colin Dixon joined us. And for a few years we were just doing mostly fantasy, the odd little bit of sci-fi, the odd little bit of necromunda, but we were just really sitting in various rooms having a whale of a time. And Mark here, the lovely Mark Farr, was our Uber salesman at the time. So over to you.
Mark, I was in Games Workshop sales. I had the opportunity to go over and work with Trish and Ali at Marauder. And when I got there, it was pretty laid back. There's two designers in one room, and me with shelves with mail order stock in the other room. And I used to just pick and pack the mail orders, get those bits done, and then normally I would walk through and chat to Trish and Ali and
get mocked and then go back
get mocked. Yeah, get mocked. Walk back out with a tail between my legs. But eventually they warmed to me.
Yeah.
So
we put up with you.
yeah, we started chatting about what we were doing, and at the time Marauder hadn't been going long, and so Trish and Ali had made loads of start ranges, if you like. I think that's fair to call them that. So if you're looking like the old Marauder Miniatures catalogue, they've done a group of elves, group of orcs and goblins and things like that. And at the time, Games Workshop was more focused on Warhammer 40k, so it was really only Trish and Ali doing Warhammer, which was convenient for me because Warhammer was my favourite. So that was good. So we started chatting and stuff, and we were talking about why we were doing what we were doing, and I think we had a conversation and I brought Warhammer armies in.
That's right, I remember that. Yeah.
So I brought Warhammer armies in, and we started going through the Citadel range.
I think it was the first time we actually kind of made a plan.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah, it probably was.
Great ideas. We were just kind of butterflies. Oh, let's make this. Let's make that. And never finish anything. But
so we sat down, didn't we? And we started talking about actually doing ranges for Warhammer armies, and even Games Workshop had never done that. So again, all of the ranges were bits and pieces. You couldn't actually. You'd have a look at the army list, and then you'd kind of wonder what figures you were going to get that would be pretty close to what you wanted. So we started going through the army books and actually making all of the bits and pieces.
We had
a bit of structure, didn't we? Yeah, and
which was really helpful actually when you're making stuff. You've got a bit of a schedule to work to.
And there was some stuff, wasn't there, that we could do, like the monsters, because in the old Warhammer armies, the monsters were sort of independent creatures. You could use them in different armies. So we thought we can hit lots of ranges by doing the monsters and stuff. So we did that.
Yeah.
And then you took on some ranges. Ali took on some ranges.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we pretty much kept to our interests in a lot of ways. Like Ali and his Lanchneck ogres and dwarves and things, because he loved his dwarves. Yeah. But I like the chance to get to do some 28mm stuff. Yeah. So like the elves and doing some chaos and which I'd never really done with Citadel.
Yeah, you never had the opportunity.
I never had the opportunity, so it really ticked all the boxes. Yeah. We were getting to do, and with you coming in and having a third point of view, I think you kind of, how shall we say it? You sort of got the madness down a little bit, which was good because you had a good point. You had a good idea, obviously, of what the trade was wanting, what sales were, and you were able to say, well, you might want to make this weird and wonderful whatever, but nobody's going to buy it. Whereas I'm getting asked for this and this. So we were able to find something that you knew would sell, that we also wanted to make,
because that was
which was
that was the art, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
And so we were lucky because we were the only people who could sell to Games Workshop stores.
Yes.
So I would phone round the 20-odd stores that we had at the time.
Wasn't many,
and talk to the staff, and I'd go, what are people asking for?
Yeah.
What do they want? If you had the choice of what could you have for Warhammer, what would you have? And we used to get the list together, didn't we?
Yeah, it was a bit like having the inside.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
which is great. You know.
Yeah, and it was quite interesting because obviously all of the guys in the Games Workshop stalls were Games Workshop fanatics.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes they were like, oh, what's this Marauder stuff? Why aren't we stocking that?
Yeah.
Why aren't we stocking somebody else's stuff? So me phoning them was, you know, I could explain what we were doing and what was going on, and that got us a much better feedback from the stores, didn't it? So
Yeah, I mean, what do you remember at that time as being the most asked for?
oh well, we started on like the dwarfs, didn't we? Because
Yeah, I mean,
we made the iron breakers and the longbeards, and people got really excited about those. And then actually having a range of monsters
Yes, that you could use.
that
for
you could
different-
use, that was massive because Games Workshop hadn't really made
They
any
hadn't.
monsters for years. So you know,
You touched upon it earlier, the fact that the monsters were somewhat generic, they weren't
Yeah.
tied for a specific
Yeah.
army.
Yeah.
You know, kind of they got that flexibility and
See,
freedom to.
that's it.
Yeah, there was no
yeah.
iconography on them
Exactly.
that,
So
that would.
chaos symbols
Yeah,
or-
yeah.
And then we did that after, didn't we?
We did that.
Yeah,
Oh, Mark and his conversion. You can convert this. You can
yeah.
convert
Convert
that.
this.
you
We
know,
can
you
get we can get 3 or 4 models out of this
oh,
model.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we did that, didn't we? We did.
We did, yeah.
Pegasus Rider with a couple of, didn't we? With a
couple of different
Empire
ones,
guys and a
Yeah.
Wood Elf and
The Wyvern with
Also-
a couple of, we
Yeah.
had like a champion and a
a
shaman,
shaman, yeah,
and whatever, shaman deer, not shaman.
sorry.
And like the spiders,
Yeah,
they had the same deal.
Yes,
so you got
yeah. So we had
you got a choice, didn't you?
yeah. So it
Yeah.
made we got a lot of value out of each
Yes.
thing we made because it's time consuming. It's making the figures
No, it
is really time consuming.
But that's actually where conversions will really help.
Yeah.
Because even if it's something as simple as a head swap or, just moving one arm and a weapon,
Yeah.
once you've got everything together in your units, it makes everything's different. You've not got the same guy appearing 3 or 4 times.
That's
And,
that like layer of like believability. almost.
yeah,
It's
and
look,
it doesn't take long because, I remember sitting with things like the goblins and the wolf riders, pulling all the heads off and sticking them on the different ones. I'd have a line of bodies, a line of heads, and thinking, right, that one can go there, that one can go there. And maybe just a different weapon or moving the way the head was looking one side or the other. And really, that would take you half an hour to, make another figure,
Yeah, so it gave us the variety, didn't it?
No, it really
So
did. It's
we
a
had-
quick way of bulking up our ranges because that's what we really needed at the beginning.
Yeah, that was
needed
the challenge, wasn't it? Yeah.
Amount of figures
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be
yeah,
bulked
yeah.
up, to be taken seriously.
Yes, because it was like with the stuff we'd got in the catalogue, it was a real mix of bits and bobs, wasn't it?
It was.
And you couldn't make proper units out of it. You would like if you decided you liked the Marauder stuff, which everybody did, you would then go, oh, I'm trying to make a unit of Elven Archers. Well, there's like 3 different ones, or I want to make a unit of Spearmen, but some of them got spear and shield, some of them got
Yeah.
2 hands, and so by going back into it, we were able to do that, weren't we? And then when we did the Dark Elves, Ali did a regiment, he did all the Colgan Riders and the Knights, and
I did the
Good
Colgan
Lord.
Riders
You
for
did-
the first,
yes.
and he did all the foot
all
figures
foot
for
troops,
them.
yeah.
The sorcerer didn't.
Did
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, and that was, I think for us that was quite an iconic range, wasn't it?
Well, it
'Cause-
was. It's still talked about. I think the ones that I certainly hear about most from people are the Dark Elves, the dwarf little Chaos Dwarves, because each one is a Chaos Warrior in miniature. I mean, he did that on purpose.
Yeah,
he did that on purpose.
yeah.
And also things like the Lanchneck Ogres, because they just look so cool,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
of course the Giant, which
Yeah,
is
well,
back
the
out
Giant
again,
was-
know.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
there were some that were just, we managed to hit something at that time. We hit the sweet spots, if you like. And that was great to see because when we were doing games days and stuff like that, it was often just the 3 of us, wasn't it?
Yeah,
And we were, so Ali and I were selling and, public facing as well. We weren't just there as designers, we were doing the sales, we had our little apron and everything.
Yeah.
So you were In fact, we roped in, I remember Ali's mum one time when they came down to visit. She did a great job. I think she got more than we did. But that was good because you got a real idea of who wanted what was selling, because we had all the blisters behind us on their
and all painted stuff out, and
that was great, wasn't it? You felt, certainly we felt much more involved in Marauder than we did in a way in Citadel, because we were, we would even sometimes do the odd trade call if you were on the phone and it rang. Sometimes one of us would pick up a trade call or something, and or pack a box if it was needed.
So it was much more. You felt much more involved in the entire business, didn't you?
And then you also got to say, "Oh, I'd really like a something."
It was great because I would go through and go, "Oh, people keep talking about," or I'd go in and go, "Oh, I really like Empire," or "Oh, I'm really excited about this. I've just been reading about that." And I'd go in
an army
and
of bits to make them.
to which the answer would be no. But do it yourself. Do it yourself. Yeah. So so it was a good period where we really got noticed, didn't we? And we really grew the ranges, and it got quite exciting.
It did.
Yeah.
It did. Yeah. It was a bit of a shock, I think, really, it certainly was to Ali and I. We didn't expect it. We didn't really know what to expect at first when we started it. It was just this, okay, we'll give it a go and we'll see what happens, and we get to make what we want to make, so there's a plus. But as it got bigger and the froth about it got bigger, and it was like, wow, people really like this, and it was a wonderful period in our sculpting careers, if you like.
Well, it was nice being that one step removed as well, wasn't it? So even though you're more involved in Marauder as a business, being that one step away from the studio in Eastwood, and that just gave you that little bit more
autonomy.
Autonomy. That's a good word. Autonomy.
That's a good word.
Peace and quiet. Where we could just get on and do stuff.
But we still had the support behind us.
Yeah, always. Yeah.
Like you were saying earlier on in the catalogue, like Dave Andrews used to do a lot of the line drawings, and that was a decision to go for line drawings rather than photographs, wasn't it? We made that decision on purpose. Because Workshop at the time had got into using photos for everything, and we wanted to appear different. So
it was a conscious decision.
It was a conscious decision to do it that way. It gave it a certain charm. I don't know. Perhaps.
Yeah, somebody like Dave Andrews as well, who was just like,
he rattled out.
Just like, so talented, just like,
pretty much anything he puts his hand to, it's good.
He's great.
Anything he puts his hand to is brilliant. So
And Ali did the skull with the pirate skull. He did that logo. I remember him sitting one evening just, what about that? Oh yeah, this one works.
That works.
And trying to work out the name as well. We thought of, it's got to be something miniatures, and it would be good if it was a MM, because it kind of flows, and it was like, oh, Morrison Miniatures, and it was just like trying to find the right, and I can't remember
where you came to Marauder.
It fits with the theme, I suppose, doesn't it? I think Warhammer kind of back then almost was a bit, the IP was certainly a lot looser.
It was.
Yes.
If you heard the term Marauder, you would just think of a generic barbarian.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it fits the theme.
It was kind of, it was within the subject matter, but vague enough that we could do anything, I suppose, in a way, wasn't it? But,
it's funny, I've always thought, you mentioned the Dark Elves, and how, in my own opinion, that the models really go along with the artwork that existed at the time. Like Mark Gibbons did a lot of the old Dark Elf artwork.
He did, lovely.
And, the two are almost identical in some respects. I think it's really hits that aesthetic that was around.
Well, I mean,
at the time.
we were effectively making Warhammer Fantasy, really, weren't we? So we were looking at all the artwork that had come before. I mean, you brought a lot of books in.
Everything I could lay my hands on, I would bring in, and we would look at it.
And we were thinking, Mark's Dark Elves. I mean, there were no better Dark Elf things to use as your inspiration than Mark's. They're fantastic, and so we had a lot to draw on. There was a heck of a lot of stuff that we could draw on and pick and choose the stuff that would hang together well.
Yes, yeah, and that was the nice thing, because all of the ranges at that point were still quite amorphous.
They were.
They weren't anywhere near as clearly delineated as they are now, and it actually meant that where Marauder was at the time, it actually put almost like the Warhammer stamp on what those ranges were going to look like.
And actually, they became fantasy, really, didn't they? And, we were able to ourselves do as many concepts as we want as well. So we were seeing our own ideas sort of, we would brainstorm a bit, wouldn't we? Yeah. And we could do things like, I think, at the time, in Games Workshop's fantasy, I think there was Dark Elves, High Elves and Wood Elves, that was it. But I did the Sea Elves, Witch Elves, some Assassins, so it was able to take little offshoots and make them a thing properly,
and it kind of adds to that plausibility and believability that, there would be this whole kind of culture.
Yes, it wasn't just these three.
It wasn't just an army.
It was kind of fleshing the world out in a way, wasn't it?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I mean, literally, it was in some cases it'd be like a line or a little picture, wouldn't it, in a book, and we'd go, "Oh, we like that." Yeah. And
anything that would spark off an idea, that works, and then the three of us would sit and
do that.
Yeah.
You still have that element of like mysticism to play around with as well, like where we said the IP hasn't been fully established.
No.
You can kind of do what you want in some sense. And
well, I think that the thing was, it was, in some ways, it was what we thought of as, it was traditional fantasy in a way, wasn't it? It wasn't Tolkien fantasy, but it was sort of traditional British type European fantasy. And so it didn't go too wacky in the way fantasy now has got some offshoots that are totally wacky, and they work.
It feels quite grounded.
But it's, I mean, fantasy nowadays is a bit more, I always think of it as a bit more anime and a bit more, it's cartoons on the TV, and it's all those influences,
Everyone can fly, everyone has superpowers kind of thing, whereas back then...
But you go into Dark Wood, you can imagine seeing some of this stuff, Or, you go into the mountains and there's a troll comes and hits you or whatever, it's grounded in the folklore and the sort of everything that's in your psyche
is there
already, which I think made a difference, because it just, I don't know, it just, people would see it and kind of recognise it in a way.
Sure.
It was like, it was just, you knew everything we were drawing from was based in all the old kind of stories and legends and all the rest of it, and you kind of felt
your bedtime Brothers Grimm and
and you felt like they could be, lots of the troopers and stuff would just be blokes or ladies in armour, and it was that sense.
You could like really identify
yes.
them almost, put yourself in their shoes kind of thing.
Yeah, because we did that range of citizens as well, didn't we?
Yes,
And that's, that was looking through some old books. I can't remember what it was called now. It's big, long. Do you remember the big, long, thin facsimile type? Oh. And it was all outfits from all over the world, line drawings and stuff.
All the pyramids, all the costumes,
And that was just a case of spending time, in the evenings going through it and thinking, oh yeah, Goose Girl, that'd be quite good. Or just finding all these really sort of fun little citizens that would make up a little hamlet or a village or a town or whatever, and making proper little characters that there never really had been much of that done.
No, because it was, I think it was always that thing with like any of the civilians and stuff, wasn't it? They were like, if I must make one. Yeah, they're just a bloke standing. Whereas you actually went and they were all
proper little people, weren't they? Going, they had something on them that showed them living their lives. From being a bar lady to a drunk in the streets to,
lumberjack or whatever.
And that, my favourite word, fun. But it was a lot of fun to do that kind of thing, and just add another thing to the world, that it doesn't all have to be great big chaos warriors with axes or whatever. It can be the ordinary people too.
And this is where we used to fall out, because
no, did we fall out?
Because that's when I make another chaos warrior.
I want to make a woman with a basket.
It's not going to say.
Looking at some of the
make lots of Chaos Warriors.
You did.
Looking at some of the models and are there any favourites you guys have? Any,
Well, they're all babies, really. I think, my tree men are still, because they started my obsession with making tree men.
Yeah.
And the Chaos stuff I did, I really enjoyed doing the Chaos.
Yeah. I was, as you can probably tell by the table, I was going through my Dark Elf phase.
Yeah.
At the time, and
they're cool looking armies. So
yeah.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. That's not all of it. But everything we did, it all had a little bit of something from all of us in, didn't it?
It did.
I remember when Ali was making the giant.
Yeah.
And he made this huge club, and I was like, that's proper club.
Yeah.
But his other hand wasn't doing anything, and I went, well, what if he'd smashed up a Bretonian knight? So Ali did he's got his mail shirt on, and he's got his leggings on, and he's got the knuckle guards are like the Paulines for the knees, and he's got his shield tied on. It's like, whoa.
That's the thing it was. It was every figure had to tell a story of who it was and the world it lived in.
Yeah, sure.
It wasn't just an anonymous. I can't even say the word.
Anonymous
character. But I think they were. When people ask about favourites, it's really difficult because it tended to be what you were making at the time. You loved it until you got maybe 2/3 of the way through the project, then you hated it with a vengeance and just wanted it to be over so you could get on to the next.
Do something else,
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
the giant, obviously, you just mentioned is still so
That's
popular.
iconic.
Yeah.
It really is.
Obviously, Games Workshop re-released it, didn't they?
Yeah.
Which will annoy a lot of collectors, won't it? But no, there's certain ones I think that certainly I find people mention when you mention Marauder, and they'll say, "Oh, I used to collect such and such or such and such," and the same stuff does come back again. A lot of like the Goblin Wolf Riders and things like that.
Yeah.
They were always hugely popular.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was a nice little range.
Yeah, what's not to like about goblins, really?
Yeah, and again, it was that we just seemed to, I think, because we were listening.
Yes.
We seemed to get a lot of the ranges about right, didn't we? And we were getting things that people really wanted. So again, when we did, I say we, because obviously I can't sculpt for toffee. Like the hammers and the longbeards and the iron breakers. When to actually have those instead of a generic range of dwarfs, people were like,
yeah, it offers another level.
Yeah.
Hadn't quite been there before.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So
and it was things like when we were in 2 or 3 different buildings over the course of Marauder. We moved a few times. At one point we were in with War Games Foundry at their factory, and so that was quite interesting. That was having Cliff Ansell and coming in and having a look at what we were doing and some of the others, and that was an interesting time. But one of the good times I think was when we went to where was the one? Was it Castle Terrace? And we had Flame Publications downstairs. So we had Tony Ackland, we had Graham Davis, Robin Jews, Mike Burton. Not Mike Burton. Yeah. So we had all of them, and there was feedback that came from them as well, wasn't there? Because we would go up and down. We were upstairs, they were downstairs. And they would come and look at what we were doing, and we would go down and see what Tony was drawing.
And it's all kind of like...
And there was another set of people putting eyes on what you were making. And by this time we were quite established. So it was good to have yet another
feedback,
another bit of feedback from people, who were very much into the
very
writing and the characters,
It's the same kind of universe they're in, isn't it?
Yeah, almost the role playing.
Yes.
So I think that was one of the big things that was important to us, was getting feedback from the people around us and who were actually buying it.
I think that was part of the thing that made us a bit different, wasn't it? Because if you were, one of the other sculptors in the design studio, you weren't getting that.
No, you were in a bit of an ivory tower, really, weren't you?
I mean, you were kind of like told, you were making this, and then I suppose you might get some feedback on the sales figures, and you
would get a bit,
but it's hard to take it into context.
Yeah.
Mostly of the feedback was, there was one point when we were all getting royalties, so your main feedback would be, oh well, that sold well, we're getting, oh that's nice, I'm getting a bit for that, and that was really the way you kind of judged what was doing well and what wasn't doing well. But I mean, that had its own drawbacks really. But yeah, I mean, we were getting feedback from all sorts of places, and we weren't directly asking for it, from people. Yeah. And we were much more involved, I think, with just everything.
Yes, I think that the whole process, wasn't it? And it was, and it was quite nice then to take some miniatures to the studio, because they'd had little or no input in it, and they'd be like, "Oh, okay." So that was quite nice as well.
It was.
So I think that was refreshing for them as well. And
well, they weren't really seeing any sort of fantasy stuff, were
they?
they? So
they weren't seeing any at the time really, because it was all focused on 40k. So.
So talk about then to the end of Marauder Miniatures. Then how did it all kind of come?
It just kind of. Well, we were kind of told one day that it was coming to an end. Really.
So I'd left by the time it was done, because Marauder Miniatures was doing well, and sales and stuff had started to pick up. I
think that was part of its downfall, to be honest. In a way.
It's my fault. Yeah. So, but I became miniatures coordinator, so I worked between Eastwood, Marauder, the studio, and basically would go around talking to the sculptors, collecting miniatures off them, taking them for Brian's approval, then having them master moulded and all the rest of it, which is when I learned how to make moulds and all the rest of it. Brian sent me to Foundry to work with Cliff, and I learned to make learned the entire process before I was let loose with the sculptors. And then I'd gone into...
That's when your hair went grey, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's when I lost it all. And then I went into retail after that. And then you'd moved back to the studio, hadn't you?
Yeah,
and Colin joined you for a bit.
Colin joined us for a bit, yeah. I mean,
and then I think
we were kind of reabsorbed, because I think, I mean, we were doing well, and it became obvious that there was a love of fantasy and a place for fantasy, and that it could be the second game, if you like. And so we were kind of absorbed back into the main studio and became part of the Citadel team again. And in some ways it was lovely to be back again, because you got your friends there, you've got a hugely creative, it still at the time was a hugely creative environment where there was a lot of toing and froing. You were talking with writers, artists, ideas flowing back and forth, and so that was lovely to be involved with that again. But there was a lot of sadness.
Yeah, of course. In
that we were very proud of what we'd done with Marauder, and we knew it was all our own hard work. Okay, we had the casting and the sport and all that from Workshop, but we knew that everything we'd produced, that was down to us. Yeah. And it was sad to lose that in a lot of ways. I think if it had been possible, we'd have carried on doing it for a bit longer. But the decision was made, above our level, if you like. So it was a case of being reabsorbed back in again. And Marauder, I think a lot of the stuff still was sold for a bit.
Yeah, it was still sold under the Warhammer logo, wasn't it?
And then it kind of got absorbed into certain figures would absorb into the Citadel ranges, and just it would all become...
And they get re-sculpted at a later date.
Yeah. So it was a bit of a shame in a lot of ways. We quite enjoyed being the outside renegades. It was quite fun.
Yeah, I mean, it was for me as well. It was a good period in Games Workshop.
Definitely.
I loved it. It was really good fun.
Yeah. And the fact, we enjoyed the fact we had our own little Marauder blade, painting competition where, got the winner there, and that was quite fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was nice, wasn't it? It was that little bit of we're part of something bigger, but we're independent as well.
Yeah.
And it was nice to have that.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. It was nice to have. It was nice to have the logistical support of all of Games Workshop behind you, but it was nice to have the creative freedom, wasn't
Yes.
it? And
Definitely.
And it was nice to be then
It's the
buoyed
best
up.
of both worlds in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
And we were buoyed up by what the feedback we got, so kept going and kept doing more. You know, and it just yeah.
And it's a period, I think. Maybe it wouldn't have been as good if it had gone on any longer. Maybe
quick while you're ahead.
Yeah, maybe it is quick while you're ahead, and maybe it would have changed. You just don't know. Yeah. It's hard to say with hindsight. I mean, yes, I think we would have carried on doing it for longer if we'd had the chance because we were enjoying it so much. But yeah, maybe it was right just to have a few years and you know, leave a nice little legacy there behind, sort of thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Marauder Miniatures definitely put its stamp on fantasy.
Definitely.
You know, that was
definitely.
You know, that's quite special, I think. So.
Well, it's great. You know, even a lot of the stuff you see coming out now, you can see the roots still in a lot of the Marauder things. You know, the essential sort of core of it is still there. You know, so that's good to see. Yeah, you feel you've had a real
impact on it.
Yeah, definitely. It was a fine time to be working there.
It was
a fine time.
Yeah.